Exclusive videos with Naruto Lemon are released on Boosty. The link is in the description. Chapters 1 to 10. Enjoy watching. Description: Haruno Sakura goes back 30 years. The Second World War of Shinobi has just ended. It's a difficult time. And how can the unlucky Kunoichi live in it, who at all costs decided to become happy? Prologue. Wrong decision. Haruno Sakura woke up in a clearing of the 5th training ground, hidden from prying eyes. The sun shone through the green foliage, birds sang, a light breeze ruffled my hair. Silence and grace. She took a deep breath and forced herself to stand up, trying not to think that she just shamefully ran away from home for training, and how sick she was of everything. And that she was already fed up with herself. Can't eat, can't sleep normally, can't exercise like before. And she thinks that maybe everyone will be better off if. She sighed, clenched her trembling palms, and drove away unworthy thoughts. Memories again began to swirl in my head like crazy leapfrog. It all started when Sakura agreed to the Uchiha's proposal. Sasuke has just sex with him along with Naruto. At first, Sakura thought that she was doing this to be closer to the Uchiha. However, hand on heart, she liked these teas. The guys were passionate, brave, with imagination and unsatisfied desires. She closed her eyes and, for several hours, during their shared weekend, dissolved in this ephemeral warmth and love. She was welcome. She was needed. She was with Sasuke and next to Naruto. She wanted to be with Sasuke. But Naruto was also nearby. Sakura was deceived for a long time by the hope that this was the case with Sasuke. She turned a blind eye to the third wheel in this situation. And then she asked Sasuke for a date where they could be just the two of them. And she was refused. The Uchiha didn't care. She was not interested in any sense, except for a certain pastime. "I'm doing this to you for Naruto's sake, not for your sake." This insensitive bastard chuckled. Sakura then became very angry. It was as if something had burst in my heart, shattered into pieces, broken off. What was it? Her patience? Her love? Her pride? She was such a fool for allowing herself to be dragged into all this by the Uchiha. It has become a comfortable thing for two guys who happily had sex with her, but no more. Even Naruto. Sakura was wildly ashamed, but then after Sasuke's words she decided to talk to Naruto. "Naruto," I thought. "You asked me to date, to become your girlfriend, I agree." Naruto paused, staring at the floor as he considered the offer. Seconds of this viscous and sticky silence literally poisoned the heart. 30 seconds, 40, 50. After 3.5 minutes, Naruto looked at Sakura with his honest blue eyes and replied, "You know, if you had said this 4 months ago, I would have been happy. And now I somehow. And you always loved Sasuke. In general, I'm sorry, I can't be your boyfriend." Sakura left, slamming the door, and a few weeks later she accidentally found out that Naruto was dating Hyuga Hinata. After such news, Sakura wandered aimlessly through the streets of Konoha for several hours. It seemed to her that everyone was disgustingly happy. Everyone except her. Almost 6 months have passed, and this feeling has not disappeared. Sakura despised herself for him, hated her, but she couldn't help herself. She sat down and rested her chin on her knees. Hours, days, weeks, months were ringing loudly in my head. 360 days ago, after a sleepless night, she made this damn decision to say yes, Uchiha Sasuke. If she had said no then, everything would have been different. She could be with Naruto. She could be happy too. If only someone had given her the right decision then. If only. Suddenly it dawned on Sakura. If only they had told me. She whispered, staring at one point. An indomitable flame of the will to win was lit in my heart. Sakura rose from the ground. The lips naturally stretched into a smile. "I'll be happy," she firmly promised herself. The warehouse was, as always, dark, but the required scroll was still found. It was not for nothing that Sakura was the right hand of the 5th Hokage. Despite her young age, she knew a lot about the pitfalls of the village, about the past, about secret and carefully kept techniques. One of these forbidden techniques was the time travel jutsu. The technique was forbidden because a person sent to the past could not return otherwise than having lived that past, and even calling the messenger back was impossible. In addition, in general, interference in time could lead to fatal consequences for many. Therefore, the technology was classified immediately after its invention. But Sakura decided to sacrifice a year of her life. What is a year if you are only 18 and want to be happy? In addition, the time loop will end the moment she leaves, and interference should be minimal. Just saying no will only change her life. Is this something global? Unrolling the scroll, she studied the drawing and instructions. Everything was quite simple. In the center you had to write the number of days for which you returned to the past, add a set of gesture seals that launched the technique, and pour into the fuin the corresponding number of chakras. It turned out to be a bit much. The entire reserve and almost all the reserves accumulated over the year in infuin, but it was worth it. And there wasn't much choice. Sakura carefully wrote 360 with her chakra and stood in the center of the round, intricate seal from the times of the whirlpool. Boar, tiger, goat, wild boar, horse, rat, she muttered, performing mudras and at the same time transferring reserves from her infuin, fleetingly thinking that the technique still consumes an indecent amount of chakra. With such expenses, not every jounin could afford a trip to the past. Her entire body was covered in a greenish haze. Taking one last look at the scroll, the symbols and signs of which began to glow, Sakura was stunned with horror. In the light of the candle, she did not understand that in the instructions under "Enter the date," there was a hieroglyph for month, and not day, as it seemed at first. The creator of the seal had disgusting handwriting. So that's why the volume of Kage-level chakra was required. Horror! Sakura's words echoed throughout the vault before she disappeared with a slight pop. Chapter 1. A mistake can cost your life. Sakura quickly made some simple calculations and was horrified. 360 months. 30 years. She clenched her fists, realizing that now was not the time or place for hysterics and panic, and looked around, remembering the history of the village. If I went back 30 years, that means it was literally 3 months since World War II ended. TCH. Sakura bit her thumb. This is bad. I might be mistaken for an enemy shinobi. It looks like I'm not far from the general shelter. After the destruction of Konoha Pain, the vault was temporarily moved to one of the caves of the Hokage Mountain. Still lucky. Otherwise, I would have ended up under the residence, where everything used to be stored, and I would have been immediately captured by ANBU. Or it materialized deep underground, because in a month they wanted to transfer the scrolls to a new dug bunker. A trembling ran through the body, a feeling of coldness and a sucking emptiness appeared inside. However, this was also due to the loss of a huge amount of chakra. Like after the Fourth World War. 30 years! It was not for nothing that this technique was forbidden. I was just an arrogant fool for using it. Why didn't I look more closely? Why weren't I alerted to such huge chakra expenditures? There is a clause in the shinobi code that ninjas should not give in to emotions, but I was inattentive, nervous, hasty, and angry. How unlike me! All because I need to pull myself together and figure out what to do next. Sakura took a deep breath and exhaled several times, calming down, and only after that she reached the edge of the cave and carefully looked out. The general shelter looked empty, but this did not mean that there were no guards. If I think logically, I plan to live for a year in hiding. Thanks to the fifth technique and my In seal, the body will not age, which means I just need to live these 30 years. She giggled nervously at the thought. Live these 30 years and survive at all costs, while hiding who I am. You can't imagine anything better. Sakura rummaged through her bag. It's good that I at least took some things and didn't immediately run to look for forbidden equipment, Sakura said ironically, trying to calm down and put her thoughts in order. She took out a half mask and chuckled. Now I will look like Kakashi-sensei. After thinking a little more, she put her palms on her head. The remaining chakra should be enough. She stopped the hair growth's stimulating infusion when she felt her locks reach her shoulder blades. She cut off her bangs with a kunai to hide such a recognizable forehead, and slowly walked towards the exit. There was very little chakra left. Stop! A sharp call echoed throughout the cave. As Sakura expected, there were still guards. Stopping, she spread her arms to the sides, indicating that she was not going to use the jutsu. I am an Iranian. I want to talk with the third Hokage or his student Tsunade Senju, she said quietly. The black-haired kunoichi who appeared in front of her narrowed her dark eyes and looked carefully at her mask. The surprise that flashed in their gaze was understandable. Kunoichi usually did not hide their faces. A beautiful girl's face gave a moral advantage for a battle with a man. For what purpose? The girl who discovered Sakura asked cautiously. I want to swear allegiance to Konohagakure. Iranians are in great demand everywhere, the kunoichi said thoughtfully. Why did you choose Konoha? I like it here, Sakura answered evenly, mentally adding. And I'm going to live in Konoha for 30 years without revealing myself, as if this is a very long mission. What is your name? The girl asked curiously. Sakura. She couldn't give up her name, however, realizing that it could be dangerous. Suits you. What about the last name? Senju. She smiled sadly. But this smile, fortunately, was hidden by her mask. Sakura Senju. What a strange surname, it means 30th, or 30, right? And I'm Nara Mikoto. Nice to meet you, Nara-san. Sakura bowed slightly to Shikamaru's relative. Senju really means 30. So will they take me to the Hokage? Their conversation was interrupted by Shinobi who appeared. Mikoto, then we'll do it ourselves. The unfamiliar Chunin waved to Sakura. Please follow us. Sakura looked at the kunoichi, remembering her. Mikoto, then. I seem to know this name, something is spinning. So, pull yourself together. All thoughts later. Now the main thing is not to screw up in front of Sarutobi Hiruzen, our third Hokage. It seems that Tsunade herself said that her teacher knew how to sense lies in words, which means that this must be used. Third Hokage of the Land of Fire Sarutobi Hiruzen stayed late at night in the residence, going over mission reports. Hokage-sama, we have found a kunoichi Iranian. She came to the village to swear allegiance to Konoha. Only, the shinobi rubbed his neck in embarrassment. We found it not far from the general shelter for residents. How did she explain her whereabouts? Hiruzen lit his pipe and exhaled the smoke. She immediately asked for an audience with you or your student, Princess Tsunade. Is that so? He inhaled again and thoughtfully blew out bitter smoke. Then bring her. The shinobi bowed and disappeared with a quiet pop. 15 minutes later a girl entered the office. Hiruzen had no doubt that the kunoichi was young. A thin, even slightly angular figure, long pink hair, and what's most surprising is a mask that hides her face right down to her bright green eyes. However, shaggy bangs hung over the top, so there was only one open area of the eyes. What is your name? Hiruzen broke the silence. Senju Sakura. So, Sakura, they told me that you are an Iranian who wants to serve Konoha. That's right, Hokage-sama. Why are you wearing a mask? I have no doubt that you are beautiful. Among shinobi girls there are simply no ugly ones. And there can be no wounds on your face, because you are an Iranian, a medical ninja. You're right. I'm just tired of being seen as just a pretty girl. I would like to be loved for my soul, so I put on a mask. Besides, the mask perfectly hides emotions, and I have been too emotional lately, especially for a shinobi. The kunoichi laughed quietly. And yet I want to look at your face. The girl hesitated for a moment, and Hiruzen saw a strange thoughtfulness in her eyes, as if she were calculating something. Then, after a deep sigh, the mask was removed. Yes, the girl was beautiful, very beautiful indeed. After a few seconds, the mask returned to its original place. Where are you from, Sakura? From the country of fire. The kunoichi did not lie. Hiruzen sensed lies very subtly, no matter how skilled a liar a person was. I don't remember a single clan in our country with the surname Senju. My mother is not a shinobi. Sakura told the truth again. So your father is a shinobi? The girl nodded in response. Where did you learn medical ninjutsu? Because you claim that you are an Irionin. Sakura bowed her head. I was trained by a medical ninja from Konoha. That's why I'm here. I want to serve my country in Konohagakure. Hiruzen nodded, satisfied with the truthful answer. It was already too late. The girl most likely did not pose a threat to the village, and further questions seemed to him a waste of time. Observation will tell more. Moreover, there are very few doctors in the village, especially after the war. Hiruzen sighed. Tsunade could not stand the death of her entire clan and went on a journey in search of the remnants of the Uzumaki and Senju. Perhaps only a new war could bring her back to the village. Okay, Senju Sakura, consider yourself accepted into our ranks. I'll arrange for you to be given a room for the night, and then we'll lodge you somewhere. Hiruzen sighed and muttered. After the war there was a lot of vacant housing. Sakura, accompanied by the attendants, left the office, and Hiruzen made a sign to one of the ANBU who were hiding under the ceiling. Keep an eye on her, standard protocol, he ordered. I doubt that she's a spy, she seems lost and uncollected, but caution wouldn't hurt. Yes, Hokage-sama, responded one of the invisible guards. Chapter 2. Interesting case. By direct order of the Hokage, the quartermaster service allocated Sakura a small 2-room apartment in the same family dormitory where the future Harino family later lived. The dorm was located next to the brand new, recently built hospital where Sakura began working. Within a few weeks, having proven herself well, she was allowed to perform complex operations. During the Fourth War, she coordinated the entire Irionin unit, and after it, in Konoha of the future. As Sakura mentally called her time, she managed a hospital and trained shinobi Iriojutsu. Compared to the future, the work she was doing was like a vacation. Sakura struggled with herself. On the one hand, she could not reveal her full potential and abilities, which were taught to her by Tsunade, who at the moment does not yet have a number of her future capabilities. Otherwise, many questions will arise, and it will be impossible to remain in the shadows after such advertising. And on the other hand, Sakura's conscience called out to her, reminding her of the doctor's oath, of helping people, and of the fact that in 12 years another war would break out, in which more children would die. Walking along the streets of the village, you will hardly see shinobi between 13 and 16 years old. And the raised death statistics are terrifying. We must prepare for war. And let Konoha, at the insistence of Tsunade, begin to form teams, among which were more or less trained Irionin in D rank, but after the Senju left Konoha and the end of the war, all these initiatives died out. There was simply no one to do this. The hospital only had 18 medic nin, half of whom were, at best, capable of healing a minor cut. Only 2 could rival Sakura when she was in her 3rd year under Tsunade. Senju-san, you are a jounin, aren't you? Distracting Sakura from her sad thoughts, asked Hana, who was one of the best Irionin in Konoha. An elderly, plump woman was appointed head of the Irionin unit after Tsunade left. Sakura sighed. No matter what she thought, it was almost impossible to hide mastery of chakra in the mystic hand technique from a fellow medic. You controlled chakra better than me. I immediately realized this when I watched you during the operation. You took half the time it usually takes me with such a wound. Hana shook her head and adjusted her round glasses. I know you're new and want to be polite to us without showing how incompetent we are compared to you. I don't know where you are from, Senju-san, but in Konohagakure we want to learn and improve. We are not afraid of difficulties. I'm ready to learn from you, Senju-senpai. I will even, if you want, ask the Hokage to appoint you in my place. Sakura looked in surprise at Hana, who was looking at her seriously. No, don't. There was a soreness in her throat, because Sakura suddenly realized that even though it was 30 years ago, this was still her Konoha, her beloved village with the same open and good inhabitants, who, despite the horror of the war they had experienced, have not stopped trusting others. No need, Hana-san, you are very good at administrative work. Call me Sakura. I will help and teach. I was just thinking about improving the qualifications of our Irionin. To hell with everything, thought Sakura. I've been stuck here for 30 years. I wanted to be happy, and I will be happy, and nothing will stop me. Mikoto smiled when she saw a girl leaving the hospital. Despite the mask, her long pink hair gave away a familiar look. Sunja-san, hello? The kunoichi turned around and looked, narrowing her green eyes. Did you recognize it? I'm Nara Mikoto. I discovered you in. Yes, of course, I recognized you. Just call him by his name. Sakura interrupted, looked down and politely asked. Your son? Mikoto, smiling, patted the light-colored crown of the child she was holding by the hand. No, this is my friend's son, but Hataru. She stopped short, but Sakura nodded, understanding without words that she didn't want to say in front of a 2-year-old boy. Kakashi-kun, meet Aunt Sakura, Mikoto said affectionately, crouching in front of the child. Did you say his name is Kakashi? What about the last name? Mikoto looked at Sakura, who was studying the child with interest. Hataki. His father, Hataki Sakumo, is currently on a mission, so I'm keeping an eye on him. We were walking and then we saw you. So will you say hello to Aunt Sakura, Kakashi-kun? Sakura sat down next to Mikoto. The boy, looking at his aunt, turned his head negatively. Remembering that her new friend was an Iranian, Mikoto took Sakura a little aside and whispered. Since his mother did not return from the mission, he has not spoken, although before that he spoke well. It's been 4 months since Hataru's group was declared dead on a mission. Probably psychological trauma, Sakura whispered thoughtfully in response, glancing sideways at the boy standing indifferently in the middle of the street. And Sakumo is no better, Mikoto continued to share. He doesn't pay attention to Kakashi at all. I understand that he loved Hataru, but to completely forget about their common child, indulging in sadness and self-destruction, she was embarrassed, realizing that she was sharing her thoughts with practically a stranger. Sorry, Sakura, it looks like I'm just boiling. It's okay, I understand. Sakura's eyes sparkled slyly. I myself am very emotional. Oh, so that's why you wear a mask? Mikoto asked, smiling. Well, that's why too. Maybe you want to take a walk with us? Kakashi seemed to like you. And noticing the surprise in the green eyes, she explained. Usually he doesn't react at all. And he looked at you with interest and answered, albeit negatively. Maybe he liked my mask. Sakura chuckled. Children love everything unusual. So will you go? Yes. I was interested in this child. I mean, his medical case. Chapter 3. A terrible secret. Sakura didn't like children. Most likely, this dislike was associated with her childhood. She was a calm, modest girl whom everyone tried to pick on. This is because ninja children are much more inquisitive and active than ordinary children. They are cocky and aggressive. Due to various improved genomes and a more developed chakra circulation system, the development of such children, physical and moral, is almost 1.5 to 2 times faster than that of an ordinary person. Sakura didn't like children. She didn't know what to talk to them about. She was furious with the screams and squeaks. She was irritated by the fact that the children were constantly distracting and meddling somewhere, spoiling and breaking everything. Therefore, when in the morning, on her only day off in the last 2 weeks, Mikoto, who had already become a fairly close friend, brought Kakashi to her, she was not at all happy. Of course, on the one hand, Sakura had great respect for her first sensei and, subsequently, the captain of Team Kakashi. But on the other hand, the mind refused to accept this 2-year-old shaggy misunderstanding with big sad eyes and half the face of the same Hataki Kakashi. Copy ninja of Konoha. A genius, Jounin, owner of the Sharingan, hero of the Third and Fourth Wars and others like him. What should I do with you? Sighing into the mask, Sakura asked a question into the void and glanced sideways at the indifferent boy who sat down on a chair and stared out the window. Sakura smiled because little Kakashi looked like his own call, the sad pug ninja Pakin from the future. The pug also looked so sadly when the adult Kakashi called him, clearly taking him away from the incredibly important dog matters. But the bright memory was instantly darkened by the thought that the child was sad not for an empty or far-fetched reason. It's no joke to lose your mother at such an early age and still understand everything. Still, little Hatake is not an ordinary child, he is a shinobi, albeit a 2-year-old. Sakura thought about Kakashi's situation. The mother died. The father, it is unclear where, disappears for weeks on missions, leaving the boy with strangers. Aunts, who immediately give him to even stranger aunts. The child is upset and depressed, and probably feels unwanted and superfluous. These thoughts made my heart sank. Having passed through so many comrades who died during the war, Sakura's perception has become somewhat coarser. If you worry about everything and everyone, no heart will be enough. There are so many deaths and so many losses. Irionen cannot afford to waste his energy on emotional experiences. She had 2 weaknesses left, Sasuke and Naruto. Only about them she was worried and afraid. Perhaps that's why their subsequent betrayal almost broke her. Sakura looked at the sad baby, and the thought appeared that after all, Kakashi was not a stranger to her. The boy must grow up to be an excellent teacher, a strong jonin, a genius who has learned 1,000 techniques. Only for now he is a small child, defenseless to the cruel reality of the shinobi world. Sakura sighed again and ruffled her spiky silver hair. Do you like milk, Kakashi? I had milk and cereal somewhere. I haven't had breakfast yet, will you come with me? Kakashi nodded blankly. It's already something, Sakura muttered. She took out cereal and milk. Tell me when you've had enough. Moving the bowl closer to the boy, she began to slowly pour cereal into the cup, carefully monitoring his reaction. Do you really want to eat everything and won't leave it for me? The cereal was already heaped, and Kakashi did not show any participation. Finally, when the cereal began to pour out onto the table, and Sakura was glad that the pack was large and just started, Kakashi fidgeted in his chair and stopped the flow of cereal with his hand, lifting the box. Sakura looked at her creation. The cereal almost covered the bowl, or rather, the bowl was swallowed up by a mountain of cereal. Unable to bear it, she burst out laughing. This laughter became her outlet. An outburst of emotions for the year that she lived in her Konoha of the future. Suffering and worrying, feeling unwanted, unhappy, unloved, crushed and used. For this stress and pressure that she felt, continuing to live in Konoha of the past. For the second month in constant fear and tension. She laughed sincerely, easily, as if letting go of the situation, renewing herself, loudly, carefree, as she had not laughed for a very, very long time, probably since her youth at the Ninja Academy. Kakashi snorted. Sakura stopped laughing, but was still holding her stomach, moaning. A smile flashed across Kakashi's face. Sakura froze and realized that she needed this sad boy no less than he needed her. If the child becomes happy, then she should become happy. Having made this fateful decision and nodding to herself, Sakura deftly divided the poured cereal into 2 bowls and poured milk over them, pushing one of Kakashi's bowls over. I hope you won't tell anyone my terrible secret? Sakura winked slyly at the child, lowered her mask and, with a sudden appetite, began to gobble up breakfast. Kakashi looked at her face for a while and then started eating too. Sakura felt very comfortable. There was something incredibly homely, having breakfast like this at the table with scattered cereal, cheerfully exchanging glances and winking conspiratorially at each other. Mother always scolded Sakura and constantly reproached her for something. Sakura decided a long time ago that everything would be completely different in her family. Chapter 4. Shinobi do not sleep. Mikoto was in a hurry. She was uncomfortable that she had voluntarily and forcibly assigned the job of nanny to her friend. Despite the mask, she clearly noticed Sakura's displeasure about this. Mikoto was pricked by her conscience. She did the same as Sakumo, leaving the child with a practically stranger, but the Uchiha clan insisted on an early visit to resolve all issues with the wedding. Therefore, she and her relatives were busy preparing for the upcoming event. All that was left was her new friend Sunju Sakura. Sakura, according to Mikoto, was an interesting person and an extraordinary kunoichi. Firstly, such a rare, peaceful, but incredibly complex specialization as Irionin. And at the same time, Mikoto felt that this sweet and fragile-looking girl was very strong, dangerous, and had killed more than once. In some ways, Sakura resembled Tsunade, even her words and mannerisms sometimes slipped like those of the Slug Princess. A month ago, when Mikoto was slightly wounded on a mission, she visited the hospital and heard Konoha's chief medic, Hana, address Sakura in a very respectful "Sensei" in the corridor. And a couple of days later, Mikoto learned that Hana allegedly sent Sakura to work with children at the Ninja Academy, to teach capable people the basics of medical ninjutsu to replenish the Irionin unit, and according to Tsunade's program, according to which every shinobi team must have a medical ninja. Secondly, Sakura was very responsible. There were other options for nanny, such as Kushina's girlfriend. But Mikoto did not dare to leave this 15-year-old little devil a child with psychological trauma. Therefore, because of Sakura's responsibility, the choice of who Kakashi would spend the morning with fell on her, despite the fact that they had known each other for only 2 months, and had maintained friendly relations for about 3 weeks. In addition, Mikoto felt strangely calm and relaxed around Sakura, and it looked like Kakashi did too. Thirdly, the mask and this whole mysterious appearance. Mikoto understood that perhaps wearing a mask to hide your emotions on missions was a good idea, especially if Sakura was, as she said, overly emotional. But her new friend always wore a mask. I slept in a mask, washed in a mask when they went to the baths. She wore a white mask during operations and work in the hospital. When they met in the caves, Sakura was wearing a standard black and blue shinobi mask. Now the mask had changed color to cherry, which was very harmonious with the cherry color of her clothes. Mikoto admitted that this color suits her friend very well. Somehow, Sakura ate while wearing a mask, but Mikoto suspected that the kunoichi was using some kind of genjutsu for this so that no one would notice anything. The mask was a fix, and for some reason Mikoto really wanted to see Sakura's face. Mikoto reached the house where Sakura lived and could not resist, deciding to check what these two were doing. She used the chameleon camouflage jutsu, jumped onto the roof, crept up to the window of her friend's apartment, and froze. The room was somehow suspiciously quiet and empty. Maybe they went for a walk? Mikoto had time to think before Sakura's unexpected loud shout. Aha! Gotcha, enemy shinobi! I almost fell off the roof. Sakura managed to catch her, and they landed softly on the grass near the house. Crap! Why are you so scared? Mikoto exclaimed, but stopped short when she heard Kakashi laugh. The child laughed boisterously. Sakura said instructively, raising her finger up. That's why you should never underestimate your opponents, even if it's a 2-year-old child and you're a jonin. Kakashi nodded in agreement. Yeah, this 2-year-old child might have a mommy in the bushes. Mikoto snorted, but immediately changed her face, realizing what she had just said in front of the boy. She reminded him of his mother. But Kakashi reacted somehow strangely to her rash words. He took Sakura by the hand and frowned. Why did you gather the pug into a pile? Do you want to go to the toilet? Sakura asked, puzzled. Kakashi blushed slightly and shook his head. Listen, shall we go to the baths? Today is your day off, Sakura? Mikoto turned the conversation away from the sensitive topic, cursing herself for her too long tongue. Let's. I'll just grab some clean things. Sakura nodded. Oh, are you with me? Kakashi clearly wasn't going to let go of her hand. Well, I thought that you would stand on guard and watch over our captured enemy shinobi. Kakashi nodded with a serious face and, releasing Sakura's hand, grabbed Mikoto. Sakura returned 10 minutes later, and Kakashi flew up to her, hugging her as if they had not seen each other for months. Mikoto was puzzled by this. They had walked together several times before, and Kakashi liked Sakura, but not to the point of hugging and jumping on each other. Sakura reacted completely calmly and in one movement threw the boy behind her back, where he carefully grabbed her shoulders and pressed her legs to her sides, like a little monkey. Mikoto noticed that Sakura's long hair was pinned up, freeing her neck. So they already did this. Mikoto guessed. Forward! Sakura commanded and was the first to jump onto the roof. Mikoto a moment later joined her galloping friend. They reached the baths in a couple of minutes. Sakura was soaking in the hot bath. They quickly washed Kakashi and left him in the guest room under the supervision of a girl from the service staff. True, before this, Sakura whispered to the boy that he should pretend to be a simple and naive 2-year-old child, and his mission would be to follow this girl and find out if she was adding extra ingredients to their tea and if she was a spy from another village. Mikoto sat next to her, embarrassed for some reason. Sakura looked lazily at her friend. She reminded her of someone with her dark long hair, fair skin and deep gray eyes. "I'm getting married," Mikoto suddenly said. Sakura's thoughts immediately turned in a different direction. Congratulations. And for whom? For the Uchiha Fugaku. Mikoto smiled. Today our relatives have decided on the date of the ceremony. For the Uchiha? Sakura widened her eyes. Immediately, a recording from Itachi's case flashed before her mind's eye. Father Uchiha Fugaku, Mother Uchiha Mikoto. But it's an Uchiha, not a Nara. Sakura realized who Mikoto reminded her of all this time. So, in front of her is the future mother of the killer of the entire clan and the mother of Sasuke? A girl who, 20 years later, will be killed by her own son, and the second will leave the village in search of revenge. Sakura, what's wrong with you? Mikoto asked worriedly. Are you crying? No, nothing. Sakura wiped away her tears and with an effort of will coped with the surging emotions. It's just that the steam makes my eyes water. Apparently, I sat in the hot water for too long. I'll go take a break. She wanted to go back in time and change one day. Your day and your decision. But what should she do in this situation? Does she have the right to change something and decide for someone, especially since everything was ambiguous with the Uchiha clan? Then, when Sasuke returned to Konoha, there was a whole trial regarding the murder of his clan and it was considered necessary to prevent internecine war in Konohagakure. Sakura sighed, deciding that everything should take its course, and problems should be solved as they arise. Chapter 5. Case History. Hatake Sakumo was sitting at a bar in the small town of Gamori on the northern border of the Fire Nation, drinking crappy sake. The mood was to hell, disgusting to such an extent that even drinking did not help me forget for a second about my own worthless, stupid life. At 22 years old, he has been a widower for 6 months. And also a bad father of a 2-year-old son. Sakumo sighed heavily and again indulged in memories and methodical enumeration of the mistakes that he had made in his life. Contrary to public opinion, he did not love his wife Hataru. He liked her, but no more. A naive girl in love gave birth to him after the first time. He was slightly tipsy, after becoming the hero of the village. White Fang, the terror of all shinobi. Hataru was pretty, very curvy and had long wanted to fall into his arms. When 2 months later it turned out that that night had not passed without consequences, her parents insisted on the wedding. It's banal to the point of madness. In public they created the appearance of a happy and strong couple, but at home there were scandals and reproaches, tears into the pillow and alienation. The birth of a child did not fix anything in their initially doomed marriage. And then the war began. Sakumo disappeared on missions. Hataru was sitting with the baby. They rarely saw each other, and he was still cold towards his wife, who forced him to marry her. At their last meeting, they quarreled greatly, blaming each other in their hearts and sending curses. I want you too. That's what he said to the tearful Hataru, who, as it turned out later, still loved him. These were the last weeks of the war. Hataru was a chunin, and the very next day after their quarrel she asked to go on a mission from which no one from their group returned. As Sakumo later found out, this was a special secret mission. Their group were the suicide bombers who turned the tide of the war. Thanks to the completion of this mission, peace treaties were signed with all the great shinobi countries. He found a note from her, written in small, uneven handwriting. I will fulfill your wish, my love. I love you, take care of our son. But did this make it any easier for anyone? He could not look at his son, whom he loved, ashamed of himself, eaten up from within by a feeling of guilt. They began to despise him for this alienation and the fact that he abandoned the child to the mercy of fate. Sakumo felt like he was on the edge. More sake, master. Sakura-sensei, Hana-san sent me, your help is needed there. Sakura looked up from the medical history and looked at the blonde girl who entered the office, one of the new girls who had been accepted into general apprenticeship and practice at the hospital. Lead the way. They went into one of the operating rooms. Having pushed through a group of students, Sakura reached the patient. A shinobi lay on the gurney, pale from loss of blood. His entire chest was covered in numerous and quite deep cuts. What about him? At one glance, Sakura identified one oddity. Wounded on a mission, one of the trainees squeaked. I can see that without you. Sakura snorted. What organs are affected? What blood type? Why aren't they still doing transfusions? Where is the 4? What are we standing for? Waiting for anybody? Everyone immediately rustled and ran around while Sakura, using the mystical hand technique, closed the wounds and connected the cut muscles. Name? She asked the shinobi who had regained consciousness. Sakumo. Hatake Sakumo. So that's what you are, a reindeer, Sakura chuckled, carefully examining the lying young man. He looked like Kakashi from future Konoha, ash-colored hair styled in a low ponytail, tan skin, dark gray eyes, a wide, strong-willed chin. Not to say that he was a handsome man, but he had his own charm. We'll need to talk seriously, Hatake Sakumo. Sakura slammed her fist into her palm, promisingly. In the meantime, inject him with a dose of sedative and sleeping pills, put on N4 with saline solution, and give him a blood transfusion. And put him in a separate room. Taking one last look at her. Dad? Sakura returned to her office, where in the corner on the sofa, Kakashi was busily cutting out shurikens from thick paper. Well, how? Shall we test your skills? She pulled out a clean scroll and held it out in front of her. Let's. Kakashi took aim, and the paper shurikens hit the provided target, sticking into the scroll. Not bad. I once met a kunoichi who used paper as a weapon. Sakura chuckled, noting the accuracy of Kakashi's hit. From 8 steps, but still he is only 2.5 years old, as she clarified from the child's medical record. If you saturate the paper with chakra, it could become dangerous. Standing behind the scroll, she ruffled his hair, causing the already shaggy Kakashi to become even more shaggy, but smiling contentedly. We should cut your hair, otherwise you'll soon look like Daddy. Sakura thoughtfully tugged at the ashy strands of the child, who had become softened by simple caresses. From the first glance at the boy's father's wounds, one thing confused her. These injuries could not have been the result of a fight or a trap. The angle and depth indicated that Sakumo had inflicted these wounds on himself. Chapter 6. I don't want to cut from the shoulder. Sakumo opened his eyes and stared at the snow-white ceiling. There was a strong smell of medicine. For his ultra-sensitive nose, these smells were very sharp and unpleasant, although they were unexpectedly mixed with a light and delicate floral flair. They entered the room silently. The room was filled with the subtle and spicy aroma of wild cherries. Sakumo turned his head to look at his guest. She turned out to be the Irionin who cured him so quickly. Remembering the circumstances of his injuries, Sakumo sighed. He was an experienced shinobi and did not consider others stupider than himself. Most likely, the medical ninja guessed how he received these deep cuts. Sakumo tensed, expecting to receive a dose of moralizing from the medic, but she, with only a blurry glance, walked past his bed, sat down on the windowsill and, turning away, looked out the window. Sakumo was perplexed, even fidgeted on the bed and coughed, trying to attract the attention of the Irionin, but the girl in a red mask that matched the color of her clothes continued to ignore him. Thin and seemingly fragile, not particularly curvy, the doctor was distinguished by unusually pink hair that reached the middle of her back, scattering over her shoulders. Silence filled the room, which, to my surprise, Sakumo was not heavy or burdensome. The girl seemed to be protecting him. Grunting at this thought, Sakumo fell asleep, and when he woke up, there was a floral smell in the empty room. He smiled, realizing that for once he had slept without nightmares. Listen, Mikoto, you told me that you were a friend of Kakashi's mother, and his father has a friend? Sakura asked when they met after her work. Mikoto was preparing for her wedding, and she had less and less time for someone else's child. However, Sakura was fine with this. She even thought about leaving Kakashi to live with her and not dragging him into two houses, especially since the little future sensei immediately began to feel sad. Of course, Kakashi didn't cry or be capricious, but there was real pain in his eyes, and Sakura's heart broke every time she transferred. Well, he has a girlfriend, they take care of dogs together. Inazukatsu. Mikoto answered after thinking. True, after the wedding they almost didn't communicate. Hataru was jealous of him. Although Tsum is 5 years younger than him, and in my opinion, she is not interested in anything except dogs. I see. Sakura still couldn't let go of Kakashi's hand. Listen, Mikoto, I think that Kakashi can stay with me until the end of the month. Moreover, I have a lot of space. You don't have time right now, and with his medical case, you need to avoid any stress. You get ready for your wedding, Michan, and don't worry about anything. Mikoto smiled knowingly. Okay, Sakura. Then let's just take a walk and then I'll walk you home? Yes, we need to buy food and eat more. I don't know how to cook anything except cereal with milk. Sakura laughed, feeling that a heavy stone had been lifted from her soul. Then you'll have to learn to cook. The friend giggled. Otherwise they say that boys eat a lot when they grow up. Well, we are raising a genius among shinobi, so we don't mind the food. Sakura answered in the same tone, looking at the cheerful child. After the walk in the store, the three of them came home to Sakura. From the excessive impressions during the day, Kakashi was already falling off his feet. Having laid him down in the bedroom, Sakura smiled at the new tenant. The boy snored sweetly, clutching the rag hair that she bought for him. Returning to the living room, Sakura offered Mikoto tea, which she happily accepted. They whiled away the evening talking on various topics. And when did you have time to drink your tea? Mikoto asked half-jokingly. I wanted to look at your face. Sakura snorted, remembering her youth, how she, Naruto, and Sasuke tried to catch the sensei in removing the mask. Now she has learned several tricks herself. So why did you start asking about Sakumo and his friends? Mikoto finally asked the question that seemed to be bothering her since the moment they met. Hatake Sakumo is in my hospital now. Sakura narrowed her eyes slyly. What? I hope you hit him on his stupid head? Mikoto jumped up, showing her fist, and actually, how to crack. No what? Why? Mikoto drawled with some childish resentment, plopping back onto her chair and finishing her tea in one gulp. He deserves it. Almost abandoned my son. Her friend lowered her voice, glancing sideways at the bedroom where Kakashi was resting. You know. Perhaps a few months ago I would have done just that. I even thought about it when I went into his room today. But not long ago I had a difficult situation, and maybe I became a little wiser. I don't want to cut from the shoulder. Is that why you came to Konoha? Well, because of your difficult situation? Mikoto thoughtfully ran her finger over her mug. Maybe. At least she influenced my decision, that's for sure. Sakura chuckled. So you want to figure it out? Yes, figure it out and help if I can. I want to know what kind of person Hatake Sakumo is. Tell me what you know, Miko-chan. I don't know much about him. He's older than you and me, by about 4 years. Hatake Sakumo, genius and hero of the village, he is called the White Fan of Konoha, because of his dogs and probably his hair color. He is kind and sympathetic. In general, he loved his son very much, he literally doted on his soul, he only fussed with him when he came from missions. That's why his behavior surprises me. I'll talk to him tomorrow. Sakura sighed. Yes, and Kakashi, I think he will want to see his unlucky daddy. He's also cute. Mikoto blushed. I have a fiancé. I really like Fugaku, but Sakumo is also a pretty nice guy. Somehow I didn't notice. Sakura muttered, already thinking about tomorrow's conversation. Well, take a closer look at him, friend. Mikoto smiled. You know, Sakura and Sakumo sound beautiful together. Chapter 7. Tail up. Hello, shaggy dog. Sakumo looked in surprise at the visitor who came in, bearing her sharp fangs in a wide smile. On the cheeks of a young brunette with a short, shaggy haircut, bright red triangle fangs burned a clan tattoo of the Inuzuka clan. Some? It's you? Sakumo rose slightly from his bed. His girlfriend laughed and said in a low, hoarse voice, not at all suitable for a young, small and fragile kunoichi. You seem to have completely lost your sense of smell if you didn't recognize me right away. Come in. Long time no see, you've grown so much. And here I am, in the hospital. One dog barked at me that my friend had completely gotten away from his paws. Why are you lying there with your tail between your legs? Yes. Sakumo sighed, smiling sadly. I saw your puppy, he will grow up to be a good wolfhound, just like his father, said Sum, and from her lips it was a good compliment. Have you seen Kakashi? How is he? Sakumo asked, and he himself realized that he had been stupid, asking about his own son from a friend with whom he had hardly communicated in the last 3 years. He runs and jumps like all puppies, Sum drawled philosophically, squinting her eyes with vertical pupils. How are you? Yes, Sakumo repeated. I don't know myself, to be honest. They say you were wounded on a mission. So what happened to your instincts, friend? Apparently I lost it somewhere, he muttered quietly. Oh. With such moods, it's time to howl at the moon, Sum concluded. Come on, tell me what's bothering you so much, shaggy one. Sakumo opened and closed his mouth in surprise. I thought. And, he began to tell. Sum, a faithful, old friend who had hung around him since childhood, listened to him in silence, without interrupting, only occasionally grunting and nodding. Sakumo spoke for more than an hour, sometimes jumping from one thought to another, remembering some insignificant detail, or repeating about the note for the 4th time. Finally, he felt empty. Sum was silent and looked expectantly into her eyes. That's all. Sakumo looked out the window, avoiding his friend's gaze. What do you say to that? You know, friend, you should know that sometimes people go crazy. Are you saying that Hataru has gone crazy? I want to say that it was her choice. She left her child and made you guilty. Is that why you run away and don't want to see your son? Yes. Sakumo had nothing more to add. But you do the same thing as she does, you run away from problems. Do you think it will be better for him? Similar. You're a shinobi, after all, just accept it. At the end of her speech, Sum got excited and hit Sakumo on the forehead, which made him feel slightly dizzy, and he, wincing in pain, rubbed the place of the blow. Sorry, you're slow-witted, but it was necessary to put your stupid brain back in place. Sum, what? Should I hit it again? No. Exactly? Otherwise I can. Sum. What? Thank you for coming. Sakura looked with a strange feeling of déjà vu at the friend of Kakashi's father and mother, her not even planned friend of Kiba. Sum was simply a female, albeit not very feminine, version of Inuzuka. Almost the same voice, the same manners and the same words. Sakura had to control herself not to say, Kiba. How is your friend? Sakura asked softly. Have you talked? He needs support now. Will he be okay, Sanju-san? I only hit him once, Sum said, gesticulating wildly. Then she lowered her head and clarified. On the forehead. He didn't have any concussions, I didn't hurt him too much? This one just had to explain something. Well, how did it work out? Sakura couldn't suppress a laugh. It seems to have worked out, you know. He really wants to see his, son. Well, that means it really was the best treatment. Sakura couldn't help but laugh, and Inuzuka-san supported her merriment by grinning widely. A familiar floral flare filled the room, and a pink-haired medic entered. The girl was holding the hand of the much-grown Kakashi. Sakumo realized with shame that he had not seen his child for 3 months. Come to me, son. He extended his hands, his voice trembled. Kakashi ran up, trustingly jumped into the offered arms and hugged him tightly. Dad, I miss you so much. I miss you too, son. I won't take on such long missions anymore. You and I will live together. Kakashi pulled away and, with childish spontaneity, said, Dad, but I live with Sakura and I want to stay with her. At Sakura's? Who is this? Sakumo was very surprised by his answer. It's me, sorry for not introducing myself. Came the soft and pleasant voice of Irainen. Sunju Sakura, I work at this hospital. At the moment, your son is living with me, since Mikoto-chan is getting married and she has a little time. But Sakura probably doesn't have time either, and besides, you're probably embarrassing the young girl. Sakumo tried to persuade his son. When I grow up, I will marry her, Kakashi announced. Sakura giggled at this statement. Sakumo smiled discreetly. She's cool, Dad, the child said with all childish seriousness. I believe you, son. I liked her too. Sakumo whispered loudly. I saw her without a mask, she is very beautiful. Kakashi shared. Sakumo looked with interest at the girl in the mask, who had so interested his usually phlegmatic and calm child. A blush began to appear on Sakura's cheekbones. She's also very strong and brave and smells very nice. Kakashi smiled contentedly. Did you notice too? Yes, Sakura smells like Sakura at night, under the full moon, when the aroma is a little bitter, intoxicating and dizzy, Sakumo said thoughtfully. Exactly, Kakashi confirmed, nodding importantly. Kakashi! Irainen exclaimed displeasedly, pointing her finger at the child. I liked you better when you were silent. With these words, Sakura ran out of the room, slamming the door. Chapter 8. Exchange of Promises. Sakura left the hospital building and headed to the park. She took a deep breath. This long winter rainy season with rare clearings has finally ended. 3 months in the past. Mid of the 3rd month. Spring. Her favorite time of the year. Sakura will bloom soon. It turns out that my birthday is coming soon? She asked the question out loud, looking at the swelling cherry buds, from which pink flowers should soon appear. Would you like to invite me to a party? A man's voice was heard behind her, and Sakura, without turning around, realized that it was Sakumo. You should have stayed in the room, you're still too weak after being wounded. I wanted to make sure everything was okay. Kakashi said too much. Please excuse my son, he is just a child. I'm glad he spoke. He needed the opposite stress, which was a date with you, so that his speech would return. Sakura said, still without turning around. It was strange. Sakura thought to herself that for some reason Kakashi's father supported this not at all childish conversation, as if teasing her. Why did Sakumo do this? Inappropriately, I remembered Mikoto's words. Sakura and Sakumo sound beautiful together. Sakura felt herself blushing again. How stupid. She immediately corrected herself. He was just glad that he saw his son and talked to him. He didn't care about what. Then why did he ask to come to her birthday? Just keeping the conversation going? Sakura's thoughts were racing. She inhaled, reminding herself that the man next to her was the father of her sensei, that she was first and foremost an Irainen, and that she promised herself to emote less and think more, like a real kunoichi. And first of all, it was necessary to think about what to do with Kakashi and what she should do if her father did take away her child, whom she had already mentally dubbed hers. When Sakura turned to face Sakumo, she hoped that there was a calm chill in her eyes and not stupid girlish embarrassment. While you are in the hospital, Kakashi will live with me, she told the child's father in a tone that brooked no objections. I agree, it's reasonable. He nodded. Don't think that the cause of your wounds has been hidden from me, Sakura continued harshly. I can't trust Kakashi to such a strangely acting father. At these words Sakumo's face changed, he turned pale and lowered his gaze. Therefore you will have to prove to me your sanity, Sakura continued, slowing down a little. How can I do this? For some reason, Sakumo didn't argue with her, although Sakura was internally preparing for this. I'll think about it some more. Sakura answered, confused, because her plan included a passionate defense of Kakashi's rights to self-determination and even a demonstration of strength to his unlucky dad. I understand. Sakumo looked into her eyes. And Sakura recognized that look, full of pain and despair, the same eyes she had when she started all this time travel. So two loneliness met. The words from an old sad song about a samurai and a geisha surfaced completely inappropriately. Sakumo. Sakura squeezed Father Kakashi's forearm, calling him by name for the first time. The voice trembled involuntarily. You have to cope, you know? For the sake of your son. He loves you very much. He needs you. Never, you hear me, never do that again. Promise me. Suddenly Sakumo cupped her hand between his and looked intensely into her eyes. I promise, Sakura-san. The word shinobi? Sakura didn't try to free her hand. For some reason it felt warm and pleasant. Sakumo grabbed her hand like a drowning man clutches a reed straw. And now breaking off this strange contact seemed inappropriate to her. Yes. The word shinobi. But you too promise. Suddenly Sakumo carefully and weightlessly touched his lips to the tips of her fingers, peeking out from his palms. Promise me to take care of my son. Yes. Of course. Sakura was confused again. This strange caress passed through her body like an electric current, and seemed to knock out her spirit and the ability to think normally. I promise. Okay. Sakumo closed his eyes and staggered. You need to lie down. Sakura grabbed the man who had begun to fall over, and climbing under his arm, jumped with him into the large and wide window of the second floor of the hospital. Back into the room, Sakura and her father appeared in the window opening. What's wrong with Dad? Kakashi asked, worried about his parent, who was clearly passed out. He followed me and fainted, Sakura said briefly. Kakashi watched as Sakura laid his father on the bed and carefully covered him with a blanket. Sakura was a very strong kunoichi. Her father was almost twice her size. Suddenly Sakura looked at Kakashi and narrowed her eyes. But before everything happened, I was attacked by enemy shinobi. Your father noticed this, and despite his wounds and poor health, decided to save me. He fought off all the shurikens flying at me. But the enemies rushed into hand-to-hand combat. We fought side by side, covering each other's backs. The chakra is almost gone. Our strength was leaving us. But your father, like a hero, fought to the last, because he was not used to giving up. Eventually the enemies retreated, throwing a smoke bomb. And only then did White Fang allow himself to faint. Kakashi listened with his mouth open, and looked first at Sakura, then at his father, whose eyes were already glistening cheerfully under the sheet with which Sakura had covered him. I will be like that too! Kakashi exclaimed. I will become as strong as my father and save you. I will be very happy about this. Sakura's eyes smiled. It's time for me to go around, and for now you look after our hero, Kakashi. Suddenly one of the enemies decides to return and take revenge on him. When Sakura left the room, Kakashi walked up to his father's bed and said seriously, looking into his eyes. Until I grow up, I allow you to marry Sakura yourself. Thank you, son, I've already thought about this myself. Sakumo smiled and patted Kakashi on the top of his head. Chapter 9. The Patient and His Doctor. The 2 weeks that Sakumo was recovering and lying in the hospital passed very quickly. During the day, Kakashi mostly sat in his father's room, walked with him in the park, and showed him the tricks that he had learned. Sakura was training new Iraianin, performing operations, but her office and paperwork, somehow, unbeknownst to her, moved to Sakumo's ward. A table and an easy chair simply, and out of nowhere, appeared there, on which she climbed with her feet to fill out reports or write plans for study sessions. In the evenings, returning home, putting her to bed after dinner and training Kakashi, Sakura thought that her apartment could easily accommodate a family of 3. True, these thoughts were immediately brutally suppressed by logic and caustic pessimism. Well, how could this be? Come on, Sakumo, you will live with me, the 3 of us will have such a good time, birds will sing to us, and pink flowers will fall from the sky. The day of discharge was inexorably approaching, as was my 19th birthday. In truth, Sakumo could have easily escaped from the hospital earlier, because Sakura deliberately delayed his discharge. She needed to figure everything out and put her thoughts in order. For any shinobi, lying in a room for 2 weeks after such trivial injuries would be too mentally exhausting, but Sakumo did not complain. They no longer talked about where Kakashi would live and the subject of tests and promises. And Sakura was glad that the boy's father did not bring up the topic. But in his spare time, Sakumo told her and his son about adventures on missions, funny stories from his childhood, what happened to him and Inuzuka-tsum, who began to often visit the hospital. About ninja dogs, about shinobi, about techniques. Sakumo smiled widely and laughed contagiously, and these gatherings with stories became their little tradition. Sakura began to notice how beautifully her silver hair shines when the morning light of the sun falls on it, how easily and naturally her white-toothed smile opens when she enters the room, how pleasantly low, quiet laughter sounds, as if enveloping her heart. Even being silent with Sakumo felt comfortable and calm. On the day of discharge, which coincided with her birthday, Sakura got up very early, waking up due to an erotic dream. Unlike other dreams of this kind, which she had seen quite a few times in her life, for the first time the main character was not a thin, white-skinned brunette with black eyes. After such dreams, she usually woke up in tears and shouting, "Don't go, Sasuke!" Feeling tired, broken, and not getting enough sleep, as if she had really been running all night for an elusive, ephemeral, cold, and unattainable dream. This dream was warm, affectionate. Sakura felt pleasant and good. She woke up from a hot wave spreading in her lower abdomen, experiencing an orgasm in her sleep for the first time. The whole body, right down to the tips of the toes, tingled with sweet languor and vigor. I wanted to sing and enjoy life. Sakura recalled with a smile the details of the dream and the main character, a muscular ash blonde with long hair gathered in a ponytail and bristling bangs, a gentle smile on his tanned face, soft, tender lips, and a big "Sakura." The voice of Kakashi interrupted her thoughts, who came into her room and climbed into the bed, hugging her. "Happy birthday to you!" "Thank you, honey." She kissed the boy on the forehead and stroked his hair. "This is for you." Kakashi handed her a card he made himself. It had a sakura branch drawn on it, and the words, "Happy birthday, Sakura!" From Kakashi. "Very nice, thank you." Sakura looked at the gift, and there was a lump in her throat. It was strangely touching. It was obvious that the child was trying. It seemed to her that she had never seen anything more beautiful in her life. Peace filled Sakura's soul. They lay in an embrace until the alarm clock rang. Mikoto smiled, happy with her idea. When she came to visit Kakashi, she noticed Sakumo's interest in Sakura and vice versa. But apparently these two had already had their feelings burned somewhere and with someone and were in no hurry to transfer their views and secret sighs to another level. Mikoto even wanted to talk about this with her friend, but she didn't want to listen to anything, saying that Sakumo was her patient, and she should be a professional. But on the day of discharge, Sakumo will no longer be a patient. Mikoto smiled at her thoughts. Being in a relationship with her loved one and preparing for her wedding, Mikoto wanted everyone around her to be happy and loved too. Moreover, Sakura has already become a substitute mother for her friend's son. She suggested Sakura celebrate her birthday in Kisuten Otakaku. Since Sakura, although she had been in Konoha for 3.5 months, had not really made friends with anyone except Mikoto and one girl from the Irionin unit, and all because of working at the hospital, teaching students and raising Kakashi. Mikoto compiled a guest list consisting of her friends and Sakura's guests, which was approved by the birthday girl. After sunset, a fairly large company gathered in the establishment where tea and various cakes were served. Mikoto called Hataki Sakumo, his Inuzuka friend Sum, his fiancée Fugaku, his older brother Tenji, his friend Kushina, and her boyfriend Namikaze Minato. Also invited, the talented Irionin from Sakura's division, Noira Akiko, a beautiful brunette with short hair, who had a daughter the same age as Kakashi. Akiko's husband died in the war. and two twin brothers Hayashi and Hisashi Hyuga who were on the same team with Mikoto when they were genin. Sakura brought Kakashi, and he, along with Akiko's daughter Rin, sat down to play in the corner at the next table. Sakura turned 19 years old, but looking at her fragile figure, the assembled guys awarded her no more than 16 and vied with each other in praising the birthday girl. The oldest person present was 22-year-old Sakumo, and the youngest, and the most lively and red-haired, was 15. All were veterans of the last war. We talked about everything without touching on this sore subject. In Kisutan, where they celebrated their birthday quite cheerfully, they started playing dance music. In fact, because of it, the choice fell on the quartermaster town, and not on a cafe somewhere in Konoha. Sakura and the other girls, except for Inuzuka, who snorted at such a proposal and almost bit the hand of Hisashi, who proposed such a thing, were invited by the guys to dance. Fugaku's brother Tenji took special care of the birthday girl. It didn't escape Mikoto how jealously Sakumo watched this, and Kakashi put his toys aside and, with childish seriousness, drilled into the back of the Uchiha who dared to dance with his Sakura. The boy ran up to Sakumo and whispered loudly. Fortunately only Tsum, Fugaku, Mikoto herself and Sakumo remained at the table. The rest were slow dancing. "Dad, why do you allow this black-haired guy to hug Sakura?" Kakashi asked, to which Sakumo blushed slightly. "The puppy is telling the point, Shaggy One." Kakashi unexpectedly supported Tsum. "They'll take your flower away from you, and then you'll bite your elbows." "What can I?" Sakumo lowered his gaze, but his son did not give up. "Dad," Kakashi said seriously, "you are White Fang, you are the hero of the village, you are the coolest ninja. Take Sakura from this guy and cuddle with her to the music. She's ours. Go, Dad. Do it." Only years of self-control helped Mikoto not laugh. Looking sideways at her groom, she noticed that the ever-serious Fugaku was smiling easily. "I hope our children will be as persistent and brave as this boy," Fugaku whispered quietly, leaning towards Mikoto. She felt herself blushing. "Let's go dance, Michan," Fugaku added with hidden tenderness. Chapter 10. There is only a moment. Sakura finally understood and fully realized how strange and scary it was to be in the past. Since the time travel, all she did was work in the hospital and work with children from the Ninja Academy, communicating almost only with Mikoto, Sakumo, and Kakashi. It was as if my mind began to put up barriers, blocks that prohibited me from delving deeply into the situation. She perceived Kakashi as just a child, her child, to be more precise. Mikoto is like a friend, a girl of her own age, with whom it is interesting to spend time. Sakumo is like a nice guy, happily forgetting that he is the father of her 32-year-old sensei, who is, in fact, her child. And Mikoto is the mother of the main killer and avenger of Konoha. Probably, if she constantly assessed these people by their status and the role they would play in shaping the future, she would simply go crazy. In Namikaze Minato, Sakura immediately recognized the future fourth Hokage. The 16-year-old blue-eyed blonde was very similar to Naruto in appearance, but in character her teammate clearly took after the restless and talkative Kushina. Sakura looked at the girl's shock of bright red hair with interest, understanding why this kunoichi was nicknamed Hot Pepper. She was pretty, and her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm and fun. They will die when Naruto is born, Sakura's mind suddenly reported coldly. Looking at baby Rin, Akiko's daughter Noera, Sakura remembered that it was her death during the Third World War that would cause the fourth. She was reading the investigation report. When the Hyuga twins, long-haired brunettes with the translucent eyes characteristic of all Hyugas, were introduced, Sakura remembered the death of Niji, Hisashi's son, and the fact that Niji became an orphan at the age of 4. Brother Uchiha Fugaku, Tenji, was very similar to Sasuke, only his jet black hair was long. This again pierced her memory with a reminder that the people sitting in front of her would be dead. Fugaku himself was very similar to Itachi, only his skin was tanned and his hair was short, but he had the same distant look in his dark eyes and not a shadow of a smile on his face. Sakura did not know the details of Sakumo's fate, because Kakashi Hataki's case as an ANBU member was classified, but when they were on a mission to rescue Gaara, Kakashi, in a conversation with Chio, mentioned that White Fan was his father. Was, in the past tense. A feast with the dead, and she alone knows about it. Sakura thanked Providence for her mask. The saying has become clearer than ever. In many knowledges there are many sorrows. I didn't want to think about anything. It was too painful to think. Too scary. Too responsible. Especially knowing that you can't change anything. I just wanted to live one day at a time. Sakura sighed and again put all her thoughts aside for later. It's her birthday now. She should be happy now. Now there is only this moment, now. She repeated mentally, like a mantra. Uchiha Tenji invited him to dance. He was telling something and, unlike his brother, was quite sociable. It turned out that Tenji was Mikoto's mentor when she was still a genin, and believed that it was thanks to him that they got along with his younger brother. Tenji also boasted that his other student was Namake's Minato is making great progress. He distinguished himself in the war and may well go higher, since his idol is the legendary Sannin Jiraiya. Like Minato, when Jiraiya appears in the village, wants to ask him to become his personal teacher. Sakura answered at random, or simply nodded. She would have been more pleased to dance with Sakumo, but for some reason the blonde shinobi was in no hurry to invite. They danced 4 dances in a row with Tenji when Sakumo stood up from his seat, approached them and asked them to give up Sakura to him. Moreover, it sounded like a threat, and she wasn't the only one who thought so, because the Uchiha immediately flashed his scarlet Sharingan eyes. Sakura's heart sank. It was scary and somehow painfully pleasant at the same time. It didn't come to a conflict, because his brother's hand fell on Tenji's shoulder, who said something about his wife and child waiting for him at home, and Sakura got to Sakumo. They danced, hugging closely, and were silent. I didn't want to talk. Sakura suddenly remembered that her mother once told her that if partners talk during a dance, it means there are no feelings between them. Lovers are always silent while dancing, dissolving in the feeling of unity. Mom was right, Sakura thought, listening to Sakumo's rapidly beating heart. I'm definitely in love. Sakumo clutched the fragile girl's figure in his arms. Sakura was a head shorter and tickled his neck with her bangs so that his whole body trembled. He carefully stroked her pink hair, from the first glance of which he so wanted to know if it was as soft as it seemed. Sakura's hair was very soft. When shaken, a unique floral scent emanated from them with renewed vigor. Sakumo was fascinated by the girl. He became like an obedient dog who had found his owner, ready to protect her and bring her slippers. It was not hidden from the gaze of the experienced jounin that Sakura, despite her apparent fragility, could protect herself. Sakumo had some kind of inner conviction in this. The way Sakura moved, the way she was confident in herself, the way and what she taught Kakashi, the way her eyes glowed at the moment when she was ready to challenge him, when they were talking in the park near the hospital, betrayed Sakura of a true warrior. A very strong kunoichi. They danced without noticing the change in music, just being in each other's arms. And Sakumo realized that this was love. When it feels good to be silent together, when you are ready, without hesitation, to sacrifice your life, when you feel dizzy when your beloved girl touches you, when you drown in her bottomless eyes, which seem to be the center of your universe. After the 10th dance, their friends tore them apart and took them to the table. Sakumo sat next to him and held Sakura's hand, and she did not resist such a possessive gesture. He was happy. Finally, Kakashi, yawning, came to them and hugging Sakura, fell asleep on her lap. They said goodbye to the company. Sakumo carried his son, holding him against his shoulder with one hand, and holding Sakura's hand with the other. It was so calm and pleasant, just like that, to go home together like a family. A real family that I wanted to create with Sakura and Kakashi. It was good that it was almost 10 kilometers from Otakaku to Konoha. This meant that they would go together for some time. Do you know what Kakashi told me recently? Sakumo broke their comfortable silence. Until I grow up, I allow you to marry Sakura yourself. He quoted his child. Sakura just chuckled but remained silent. And do you know what I answered him? Sakumo continued. What? Sakura bowed her head. Sakumo couldn't see anything more in the viscous darkness of the late evening. I've been thinking about this for a long time now. His voice became hoarse with excitement, and they stopped. Sakumo squeezed the kunoichi's thin hand, worried that after his words she would simply run away. Sakura, marry me. Sakura's hand trembled in his palm, but the attempt to free himself, which he was so afraid of, did not follow. You don't have to answer for now, think about it, Sakumo said quickly and corrected Kakashi, who was sleeping on his shoulder. We still have to go to Konoha, so you have time. Sakura snorted but nodded. They just walked and were silent, enjoying each other's company and the beautiful night. And when they got to Sakura's apartment, she hesitated and said, You can stay with us. And without explaining anything, she walked through the door, as if leaving the choice to him. And is he going to refuse, or what? Of course, Sakumo came in next, unable to control his face breaking into a wide, contented smile. Sakura pointed to Kakashi's bedroom, and Sakumo, with agility worthy of the title of hero of the village, put his son to bed. There was no light on in the living room. He tried to find the switch but was gently stopped. No need for light. Sakura's voice was quiet. In the darkness and silence her breathing could be heard. Sakumo, like any shinobi, could do without lighting just fine. He smelled and felt where the girl was, so he came close to her. It seemed to him that the beating of his heart could be heard throughout the entire room. Sakura hugged him as if they were dancing again. They stood like that for a while, simply hugging each other and listening to the beating of their hearts, sounding in unison. Sakumo's eyes had already adjusted to the darkness. The light of the young moon penetrated the room, creating a mysterious atmosphere. From the open window there was the smell of cherry blossoms. Sakura smelled of the aromas of berries and flowers. She pulled away and took off her mask. It was impossible to see her face, but he realized that whatever this woman was, she was beautiful. Sakumo carefully stroked her cheek with his finger and kissed her gently, trying to convey all his feelings without words.